Episode 6969 of the Too Thick Pod, your home for all things sports, cards, and levity. I am Jeremy from Reckless Cards, joined as always by. Nope, we're going solo today. It's a Sticks episode. Manuel is off doing Manuel things. He wishes he could be here. However, when he said it was going to be a serious discussion, he just didn't have the mental capacity or bandwidth to participate. So I said, "Don't worry, kid. I will hold it down." So I think this is where he'd fumble his words a little bit. He'd rock back and forth with his stunner shades, as he calls them, and he would say something about hobby release, blah 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 blah. So we'll bypass that. We'll get immediately into, as always, this episode is brought to you by the fine folks at TNT Cards, the greatest group submitter north of the Mason-Dixon line. You heard it right here. The greatest group submitter north of the Mason-Dixon line. They're good people. Tyler, Tommy, everybody over at TNT Cards. Make sure you check out the website, tntcards.com, or hit them up on Facebook, tntcards.mi. Tell them I sent you. Massive discount. Tell them that Manny sent you, maybe not so much. So as we get into this, I want to wish everybody well who had an incredible time at the Shipshawana show. It sounded like it was packed. Maybe even to the point where there was too many people. Asses to elbows, no room for movement, but by all accounts, it was an incredible show. Awesome cards. I am not an envious person. I'm not jealous. Like the few times in my life I felt jealousy are like if, for instance, like my dog went to somebody else. Like that would bother me and I would be upset. I would be hurt on the inside. I would overcome. Luckily, Butters has never put me in that situation. 14 years going, so we're good. But I did experience a little bit of FOMO. I'm not going to lie. This card stuff sometimes has me feeling some sort of way. It's very similar to when Courtney went to Burbank and I was home. Courtney went to Dallas and I was home. Courtney went to Culture Collision. I was home. Courtney went to Shipshawana. I was home. Courtney was at the National. I was home. Luckily, my guy Matt from Ludex was able, and Brock, in all seriousness, was able to beam my head into the VIP lounge so we could do a live podcast. But yeah, I really enjoy this hobby stuff. And by really enjoy, like I love it. I have fun with it. I feel that there's a million different ways to navigate it. And so I'm fascinated by it. One thing that I think what makes Too Thick very appealing is specifically Manny. There are people in this space who only put on or show you the good, or people are trying to ultimately push something, or people who don't come across as 100% them authentic selves. And I think Manny has endeared himself to a lot of people because he is 100% honest and transparent of who he is. I've had the good fortune of watching his hobby journey from, the good, the bad, the ugly. He's been very, very open about the challenges he's faced, things that he's tried, situations he's been in. And I find that to be the kind of stuff that I like to listen to because it's relatable. Oftentimes, what we see on social media is not real, or it's real, but it's not what a lot of us are dealing with, encountering, suffering through. Like, not every submission that I get back that I submit myself. Now, if it goes through TNT, I got you, Tyler. If it goes through TNT, baby, nines are better. But you know what I mean? Like some of the stuff you see with these people, I submitted 400 cards and I got 390 gems, or, $50,000 cards, $100,000 cards. It's easy to get caught up and think that that's the way the hobby is. One thing that we've always been very vocal about is visit a local show. Oftentimes, when we do the Avery Shoebox show in Lansing, you go there and it's a completely different vibe from what's going on Instagram. A lot of those dealers, a lot of the old heads, a lot of the people that are really in the trenches day to day in the hobby aren't living that Instagram life and or have no idea like what's being represented about the hobby on social media. So what I wanted to do today is we got a lot of DMs, and myself and Courtney have over the last few years adjusted our hobby path numerous times. Um, I'm a big believer in trying new things. I want to experience it all. I want to try something, find out how I can make it work. If somebody says something can't be done, I'm the sort of person that's wired to find a way to make it work. That goes back to like when people said you couldn't make money and we were flipping HGA custom slabs, with like low to mid end soccer, doing all right, making a couple bucks. So I'm reading a book right now called The Psychology of Money. And one thing, I'm not going to even begin to talk about the book in detail because, quite frankly, I'm not nearly intelligent enough to articulate, represent the message, or share any of its teachings to you, a well educated, thick audience. But I will say there was one part that resonated with me, and I want to open with that. It says, and basically in this part of the book, they're talking about how investing strategies are shared without any sort of context and without any sort of discussion as why this is a good strategy. So for instance, you're standing around the water cooler at work. Let's say, you're on your break at Ronnie's Chop House, McDonald's for some of you. And Sarah Ann comes up, and you can tell I've been watching Love is Blind because Sarah Ann is the name I went with. But they come up and they say, "Hey, you have to buy this stock. You have to buy this stock. This is a great stock." Okay, cool. We've all heard that. We've all been around where somebody presents something, and I'm sure people mean well when they're trying to share this information or they have an insider tip. But in this book, it goes on to talk about how oftentimes there's not that follow-up conversation of what something that might be good for me isn't good for you, isn't good for him, isn't good for her. Like, why is it a good investment? How long are they holding it? What's their entrance and exit strategy? Blah, 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 blah. So I want to point that out because that really resonates with me because I'm going to share how Courtney and I are utilizing ComC. But I think it's important that you know our backstory and what we're trying to accomplish because what we are doing and how we are operating might work for us. But the last thing I want is for any of you to take this as gospel, go and do it, and then get a different result or expect something different. So I want to be clear about that. And I'm sure, the people like 504 Silverlight, they're going to read the book and say, "Hey, you totally misrepresented it, blah, 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 blah." That is how I interpret it. That's how I'm using to share this little segue, as we call it in the business. So, quit busting my balls. So with that being said, through our hobby experience that we've shared on social media, so I don't know, is it 4 or 5 years now? We have gone from the low end game to the mid end game to probably about a year ago, I would say mid to high end. Now, high end for us would be like under $10,000 cards. And I don't even want to say that's a lot. I think we bought maybe a handful of cards in that like three to six, $7,000 range. Otherwise, from a raw perspective, we were really looking at like between $100 and $1,000 in raw cards. That's like at the height. And when I say height, the most amount of money that we had flowing through. Ultimately, it's no secret. Courtney and I decided to go into business for ourselves outside of the hobby. We had tinkered and toyed with the idea of going into business within the hobby. However, when the hobby becomes a job and you're reliant upon selling, that gets kind of sticky for me. And it's something that we ultimately decided we did not feel comfortable with. So, um, so we work in the trades. We work in construction. So as a result of that, there is not a cushy paycheck coming in weekly that we have discretionary money that we can just, piss away. This time last year, I could buy a $1,000 card And if it didn't pan out the way I wanted, yeah, it would sting. It's not cool. But at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. The situation that we're in right now is we are responsible for our own check. We have children, we have a mortgage, we have bills. So, with that being said, it is imperative that we are fiscally responsible. However, it is also important to us that we have a certain quality of life that we can enjoy. That was part of the goal of going into business ourselves, to have a quality of life. We both love the hobby. We share our family with the hobby. We share our experience, the good, the bad, the ugly. We share what we're buying. We share what we're selling. We are an open book. We respond to DMs. We have gotten on FaceTimes with people. We have Zoomed. We have done the whole shebang. We support good business, and we have never taken money for any of it, which I am very proud of. Um, and you're gonna say, Jeremy, but you're sponsored by TNT. Like, if I can get some grading once in a while, cool. But let's not get it twisted. We're not taking money, and also, like, from a sponsorship perspective, we're saying, like, hey, if you're gonna submit your cards, these are the pros and cons. Try them. You ultimately get to choose. Make your own decision. And you don't even have to grade cards if you choose not to. There's a lot of people that choose not to grade cards. So anyway, long-winded way of saying fiscal responsibility. Recently, you've heard us talk a lot about ComC, and I am absolutely having a blast. And the reason I am having a blast is I am limited for time. Obviously, you have not seen us set up at any show this year, with the exception of Ship Shawana, and even that, Courtney was there, I was not. We've had to divide our time. We see each other in passing in one day a week. So it's like, how can we still be incredibly active in the hobby? How can we do the things that we like to do, buy, sell, trade? How can we still have fun? Because for both of us, it's a release. We like looking at cool cards. We like buying cool cards. We like transacting when possible. But how do we do that and keep hobby money separate from personal funds without putting our family at risk? This is where ComC comes in. If you go back a couple years ago, I think Kay just talked about it. I know we've talked about it. We left the National in Chicago to drive to Wisconsin to buy a massive lot. It was the first time that we bought any sort of substantial lot. This was probably two giant totes filled with, let's say, 15 to $200 cards. I think we spent maybe $4,000 or $5,000. Doesn't matter. We got those cards, and as we were like on this with the amount of money going into the hobby, naturally we were gravitating towards bigger cards. One, because I think most people, to a certain degree, have a little bit of an ego. And I could never understand, like, man, we post a cool card. We're awesome. We don't get the likes or love. Somebody else post it. They got like those one of ones or the kabooms, the downtowns, whatever. I'm like, I want to have big cards. I want to show that I can play this game. I want to show that I can graduate. And so ultimately, we started going towards that. Work got busy. And so as we were on the come up with smaller cards, it made more sense for us to, you know, higher end cards. Okay. So now we're in a situation where we don't have the luxury to do that. We choose not to do that. How can we still continue to build a bankroll, have some cash on hand? Like, I think that's one thing that I encourage everybody is to always have a reserve of cash, because you never know when that awesome lot, when that cool card, when something's going to pop up that you weren't expecting. Like, it's awesome to have cash for those. Expect the unexpected. So how do we put ourselves in a position, but we don't have a lot of time, and we don't want to sell any of our PC items to get there? Over the last couple of years, when we were buying these lots, we were getting these totes and totes, books, boxes, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows of cards. Uh, anybody that was trying to liquidate, anybody was trying to get out, anybody was trying to move into a bigger card, we were taking these cards. So we took them, we picked through them, and when I say pick through, like, I mean scanned, looking for big cards, numbered cards, massive things, and then the cards sat idle. And the thought was like, we will set these up at shows. Well, preparing dollar boxes, $5 boxes, quarter boxes is incredibly time consuming and just something that ultimately we found is not for us. So I give all the credit into the world to like Kim Stinnett, um, Brad Hollister and his wife, who Hollister's Cards. They do an incredible job putting these things together, and the level of effort that it goes into to make sure those things are filled, sorted, have the right kind of stuff, some bigger cards to make it worthwhile, to surprise people picking through, is just something that we identified was not for us. So we had been having some success on ComC, and I said, Court, what if we take a lot of these cards that we own and just start, taking some time, maybe an hour, 2 hours a week, going through picking out cards that are like, let's say $2 and above, because there is a 50-cent ingestion fee. So the last thing you want to do is send 50-cent cards because you're just confusing activity with accomplishment. What if we start doing that? Or any card that, we're not going to grade, or it like maybe, we're in the off season, it's going to take a little bit of time. ComC is usually a couple months before your cards get put up. But then, it's you put it in a penny sleeve and you ship it. What if we try that? And so we got into a really nice rhythm of 50 cards, 150 cards, 200 cards, 300 cards. And you send them in and then you forget about it. You get the email late at night that like, hey, 50 of your 100 cards have been uploaded. Beautiful picture, description of the card, condition of the card. You set the price and then you forget about it. So I always thought like, haha, that's funny. Cool. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a shot. What I didn't expect, and I guess maybe I don't want to say arrogant, but there's sure as hell a lot more people that are playing in that $1 to $25 range than there are people playing in that, 1,000 to 5,000 to $10,000 range on a consistent basis. Now, I will say that there's there's awesome people like Extraordinary Cards, LK Cards, or some of the bigger players in the game who have that network. That just wasn't our network. So for us to play in that space was a little bit more difficult. However, moving these lower end cards with minimal effort, not being responsible for pictures, not being responsible for shipping, not being responsible for anything other than accept, which I have on ours an auto accept within a certain range. So I don't have to do anything. I just wake up and I get a daily summary of the things that are sold. So what we've done is we have started auditing our own collection, which I used to think was like, I knew it was the smart and correct thing to do. I found it to be an incredibly cumbersome process and something that I wasn't personally excited to do. So I just didn't do it. Well, now out of necessity and creating a game plan and sticking to it, we've started doing it. And I will say, an unintended consequence of going through this process is I've had a blast looking for cards that I missed, looking for cards that like, hey, that's $2, that's $3, that's $4, that's $2, that's $1, that's 75 cents, whatever the case may be. And recognizing, we have a little gold mine. I use that term, loose, but there is a lot of money just sitting there. I just need to take the time to go through it. So we have now shifted from bigger cards to playing the ComC game. It's a way that we can grab cards. It's a way that we can send them off with minimal effort. It is a little time consuming because you want to make sure what you're sending in is over. I would say for us, $2 is like the threshold. Like between if there's like consistent sales of $1.75 to $2, we'll send those in. We set the pricing, and then forget about it. So this I wanted to share. And if you're listening in the car or whatever, I just have a small box of some of the cards we've started to go through. Now, I want to be fair that in a previous life, 2 years ago, a year ago, we were buying massive lots. Somebody hit us up with a lot, we were buying it. So I do have the fortune, and I don't want that to be lost on any of y'all listening, that we have cards sitting here that we can work with. However, we have also identified when people reach out looking to buy, sell, trade, we are interested in buying low to mid tier lots with the expectation that we'll get them and send them off to ComC. And that's quite frankly, many years ago when we built our hobby bankroll, we did that. I can't tell you how many times we came home from a Shipshewana or a Lansing show where we bought out somebody's table, or even in Chicago at the Skyline with Mark's Card Shop in Downers Grove. Bought them out, came home, and immediately that night maybe had a couple adult beverages and posted every single thing to eBay. And that first couple cards, you're excited. You're doing the math when you're looking at the comps. They're like, oh man, I'm going to make, 70%, 80%. Man, if this card goes for what I think it could, boom. And I got this to hold over. It'll be awesome. And you get like 6 cards in, and then you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is no longer fun. So we shied away. So, like, here's some of the stuff we're looking at. Like, I've got a bunch of soccer rookie cards of 16, 17-year-old kids. And I don't know. We have Disney Fun. Soccer autos. Archie Manning, Prism-based rookie cards. Or they're not even rookie cards, excuse me. I'm going to get roasted for that. But the Archie Mannings, like autos, game-used cards. And these aren't even big players. College cards. But what we found is true collectors, there is an audience for that. People who are collecting for whatever college, their alma mater, or specific players that you wouldn't even think of. Like I just sold a Gegard Mousasi card for like $40. One of my favorite mixed martial artists of all time. I had some extra cards. I sent them in not thinking anything of it, and it got swooped up. Most people listening doesn't even know who the Dreamcatcher is. Anyway, we have found for us that to be an incredibly nice recipe to build a bankroll. We are still in our infancy of this. I was just schooled to ComC a few months ago, and maybe a little bit more than a few months ago. My experience thus far has been incredible. Now, I want to point out, I have never looked to purchase a card on ComC. I'm not saying that I won't. However, I am treating that as a spot just to build a bankroll. I have never attempted to ship cards home from ComC. I am legitimately just sending my cards off and then using that as a platform to sell for people. These are cards that I don't care about, like in that sense. These are cards that would just be sitting here collecting dust. And I think over the last few months, we've got like $2,000 in sales. So there's probably, it's a good amount of cards. And there's been a couple of like $50 and $70 cards, but realistically, oftentimes these are small cards. These are $1. These are 75 cents. These are 50 cents. These are just cards just those sorts of cards. So people have been messaging. I've said so like 1,000 times. I've turned this into a drinking game. Hold on. Now this is who I'm trying to get sponsored by, Starbucks, little Oleato. The olive oil in a coffee is it's incredible. But I wanted to share. We got a lot of DMs, people who are asking about it. And so that's kind of like the game we're playing. We're trying to stay less than a Zion case full of slabs. We are sending cards off to consignment, like, mid to big cards of the low end range, $250, $300 and below. And we're being selective in what we are purchasing and utilizing ComC as a platform to sell cards. We're trying to make it a point to send cards out every 3 to 4 weeks. So I would say I don't even know what the count is here. These are all cards that are, between 2 and a couple of $10, $15, $20 cards. Lastly, going through our own PC, I had a lot of fun looking at some of the cards and because now you're not just looking for the massive card, you're looking for anything that's serial numbered, anything that's a big name player, and finding some of the late 90s, early 2000s cards that are numbered or looking at old baseball cards when we used to read the stats on the cards, and doing that with Steven and the kids has been like a lot of fun. And it's teaching them, who are, the kids are on social media much more than I'll ever be. It's teaching for Steven a way that, hey, you want that big two, three, four, $500 card. Well, here's a way to do it. You should try it. And, like, I'm an advantage that we have is that we have somebody who's completely ignorant to the process asking very honest questions that has a very different and unique perspective than I do, which I ultimately learn from. So I feel like I'm almost double dipping because I'm, gathering the perspective of somebody who doesn't know, taking in that into account or understanding what they're asking and trying to help find a solution, getting to spend time with them and also teaching them an alternative way for them to go, make a couple bucks. So I know there's a million ComC videos out there. I know that there's people who are far more educated, but there's enough comments, enough DMs that wanted to quickly record something for you all. So I appreciate there'll probably only be about 4 listeners, 3 of which will be my family who are there for moral support. And then the 4th one will be an accidental listen from probably New Zealand or Puerto Rico. But yeah, man, that's what we're doing over here. I appreciate everybody that's reached out for the trade up challenge. That thing is going to be bananas. DMs will be going out in the next 24 to 48 hours to get that started. I started locking down the badass guests. We like to spend a couple minutes doing some solo dolo episodes. Manny doesn't want to be too guest heavy. We don't want the show to be the guests. We want it to be too thick. And then once in a while, we'll bring on a guest. And then there is a, pretty massive announcement for us. Something that we're going to start. I'm hoping to announce that in the next week or two. I'm just like trying to wrap up one loose end, trying to bring it home. Don't know if I'll be able to, but we're going to sure as hell fight like to make it happen. But I hope that you all enjoyed your hobby release, and make sure you do some ASMR. Remember, Manny has hype videos with Jeff Wilson. So that's a thing, there's that. So make sure you blow up his spot. Until next time, have yourself a good day. I'm gonna go fly because those Red Wing commercials or those Red Bull commercials where they give you wings. It's my 3rd Starbucks of the day, and I feel like I'm going to fly out of the room. So until next time, you're welcome.